In 1968, somewhere in the Mekong Delta, a provincial official received a list of names. The list had been compiled by American advisors. Each name represented a problem to be solved. Between 1968 and mid-1971, a CIA-designed program resulted in the reported neutralization of 20,587 individuals. The CIA itself submitted that figure to Congress. The program was called Phoenix. South Vietnamese authorities called it Phung Hoang, after a mythical bird of good omen. It was conceived by CIA officer Robert Comer in 1967. Its stated purpose was precise: identify the political infrastructure supporting the Viet Cong, then capture, turn, or eliminate it. On paper, this meant targeting commanders, couriers, tax collectors, and organizers. People who kept the insurgency breathing beneath the surface. The logic was surgical. The execution was not. Comer built Phoenix around a bureaucratic architecture that felt, from a distance, like a law enforcement operation. Intelligence was gathered from multiple sources: district officers, informants, captured documents, interrogation reports. Names were entered into a classification system. Suspects were rated by the apparent threat they posed. Warrants were issued. Teams went out. What happened after that depended on who was doing it, and where, and how much pressure they were under to produce results. Province interrogation centers were established across South Vietnam with CIA funding. American advisors were stationed inside them. Former detainees, once released, described rooms where the air smelled of copper and damp concrete. They described metal clamps. They described water forced into the lungs until the body's instinct to survive overwhelmed every other function. U.S. advisors later confirmed these accounts in testimony and memoir. Some said they raised objections. Some said they were told the methods were effective. A smaller number said nothing for decades. In 1971, CIA Director William Colby testified before Congress. He presented the program's numbers directly. 20,587 individuals had been neutralized between 1968 and mid-1971. Neutralization was the program's operational term. It covered 3 outcomes: capture, defection, and killing. Colby did not separate these categories cleanly in his initial testimony. Pressed by members of the committee, he confirmed that a substantial portion of the neutralizations were killings. He maintained the program was lawful. He maintained its targets were legitimate. Congressman William Cotter was not satisfied. He and others raised formal objections on the floor of Congress. Their concern was structural, not anecdotal. Phoenix operated on a quota system. Each province was required to neutralize a set number of targets every month. Cotter's argument was simple: when you attach a number to a process, the process begins serving the number. District officials needed names to fill quotas. Informants knew that providing names produced rewards. The chain of verification, the checks that were supposed to ensure a name on a list belonged there, was, in many provinces, a formality. Sometimes less than that. Robert Comer, the program's architect, eventually acknowledged this in a Rand Corporation report. He wrote that Phoenix was structurally incapable of distinguishing senior Viet Cong cadres from low-level sympathizers. He acknowledged that the program's methods could not reliably separate sympathizers from civilians with no connection to the insurgency at all. This was not a whistleblower's testimony. This was the man who built the machine, writing, in measured institutional language, that the machine could not do what it was designed to do. The investigation into the program's conduct stalled in the mid-1970s for reasons that compounded each other. The war ended. The political cost of a thorough accounting was high. Files were classified. Some were destroyed. The Province Interrogation Center records that might have allowed a systematic review of individual cases were, by most accounts, incomplete before the fall of Saigon and largely inaccessible afterward. Congressional hearings touched the edges of the program. They did not open it fully. Efforts to prosecute individual advisors for specific acts inside the interrogation centers never advanced past preliminary inquiry. Jurisdictional questions arose. Witnesses could not be compelled from Vietnam. American participants were protected by layers of sovereign immunity and military classification. The families of Vietnamese civilians who believed their relatives had been wrongly killed had no legal avenue that reached into American courts. The door did not close dramatically. It simply stopped being pushed. There was one lead that received attention briefly and then did not. Barton Osborne, a former military intelligence officer, testified before Congress in 1971. He described specific techniques he said he had witnessed inside Phoenix-affiliated detention facilities. His testimony was detailed. It was disputed by the Department of Defense. A formal review of his claims was initiated. The outcome of that review, whether it was completed, what it concluded, and where its records reside, has not been made publicly accessible in any substantive form. In 1975, William Colby published a memoir. He defended Phoenix until the end of his career. He died in 1996. In 2009, declassified documents released under the Freedom of Information Act confirmed the quota figures Colby had testified to. They also confirmed that provincial reporting on the classification of neutralizations was inconsistent across districts. What the documents did not resolve, what they could not resolve, was the question of how many names on those provincial lists had been verified by any independent standard before the teams went out. 20,587 is a number. It comes from a bureaucracy that, by its own architect's admission, could not reliably confirm who it was counting. Somewhere in those records, there is a name that should not be there. The question the program never answered, and never tried to, is how many times that sentence is true.